President Xi Jinping meets Chief Executive John Lee in Beijing. Development Bureau plans to step up penalties to enhance safety of buildings and construction. And lawmakers are introduced to taxi cameras. Hello, happy Friday the 13th. Welcome to TVB News. President Xi Jinping met Chief Executive John Lee in Beijing this afternoon, who was there on his annual duty visit. In the meeting, Xi praised Lee's work and also pledged support for Hong Kong's economic development as Lee briefed President Xi on the city's latest situation. Jackie Lin has the top story.
President Xi Jinping met with Chief Executive John Lee in Zhongnan High in Beijing this afternoon. This marked Lee's third duty visit to Beijing as a city leader. Just like last year, President Xi Jinping seated in the middle with Premier Li Qiang sitting opposite John Lee. Xia Baolong, director of the Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office, was seated next to Lee. Also in attendance were Cai Qi, Secretary of the Secretariat of the Chinese Communist Party, Ding Xuexiang, Vice Premier of the State Council, and Zheng Yanxiong, Director of Beijing's Liaison Office in Hong Kong. President Xi Jinping praised Lee for leading the SAR government pragmatically and proactively over the past year. Xi noted the historic completion of the enactment of Article 23 of the Basic Law, the focus on the city's economic development, efforts to resolve livelihood problems, including housing and medical care, the strengthening of exchanges and cooperation with foreign countries, and the further consolidation of the good momentum of Hong Kong's development. Xi said the central government fully affirms the work of Lee and the Hong Kong government. She also noted the third plenary session of the 20th Central Committee of the Communist Party of China, which highlighted the country's goals of further deepening reform and promoting Chinese-style modernization. With that, Xi said Hong Kong faces new historical opportunities for its development. He said Beijing will also fully support Lee and the SAR government in their alignment with the national strategy. John Lee meanwhile expressed his gratitude to Xi. The city leader said this administration is reaching half its term this year, and it marks an important moment for them to make greater contributions to the building of a great modern Chinese country. Over the past 2.5 years, Lee said Hong Kong has seen improvements in various international rankings. He said they reflected the confidence of the international community in Hong Kong and shows that the SAR's policy is heading towards the right direction. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
Chief Secretary for Administration Eric Chan departed for Beijing at 6 this evening. He's expected to join Chief Executive John Lee in meetings with ministries and officials in the capital. And in other news, to enhance the safety of buildings and construction works, the Development Bureau is proposing to step up penalties by amending the buildings ordinance. They include the introduction of fixed penalties of $6,000 for non-compliance with the mandatory building inspection scheme notice. The Bureau has also proposed raising the level of penalties against the mandatory window inspection scheme. New offenses will also be introduced. Failure to comply with notices issued resulting in death or injury or damage to property will face a maximum fine of $300,000 and 1 year imprisonment. There are also new rules targeting new unauthorized building works. The Bureau plans to introduce a fixed fine of $10,000 for non-compliance with removal orders. If convicted repeatedly, offenders can face a maximum fine of $40,000 and a prison term of 1 year. The government is planning to make it mandatory for all taxis to install video recording equipment and electronic payment options next year. 2 taxis with in-car cameras were parked outside the Legislative Council complex today for lawmakers to examine. Anip reports.
The 2 taxis outside LegCo today had 3 cameras each, 2 cameras filming the road and another one for inside the taxi. The government plans to complete all installations by 2026. It's expected to cost taxi management companies at least $3,000 for each vehicle. Some LegCo members raised concerns about whether subsidies will be provided by the government. LegCo member Chan Hook-Fung said the faster cost issues are settled and the quicker the new recording systems can be installed, the better. Secretary for Transport and Logistics Mabel Chan earlier said she believes responsibility falls on taxi management companies because they benefit from the installations. Concerns about privacy infringement were also raised.
Well, of course, people do concern about the privacy issue, but in fact, if you look at all other public transport in Hong Kong, they already have a CCTV camera there. The most important thing is to make sure the passengers are aware that the CCTV system is on.
The chairman of the Legislative Council's transport panel, Ben Chan, said drivers cannot tamper with the recording system and that recorded content will be deleted after 30 days. Ben Chan said the installation of in-taxi cameras will not infringe on privacy rights. He added these cameras are intended to enhance the quality of service by taxi drivers while ensuring the security of drivers and passengers. Ann Ip, TVB News.
Former media tycoon Jimmy Lai continues to take the stand to defend himself against national security charges. He admitted cheering for then U.S. President Donald Trump, who imposed sanctions on China. Samantha Lee reports.
Today marks day 109 of Jimmy Lai's trial, which took place at the West Kowloon Magistrates Court. The defense displayed a message sent by Lai to former Apple Daily columnist Simon Lee. The message was Lai's draft of a social media post about convener of the Executive Council Bernard Chan's American bank account being forced to close. In the message, Lai wrote he believed such sanction against those oppressors of freedom was only the tip of the iceberg and would spread further. He also shouted bravo to then U.S. President Donald Trump. In court, Lai said he praised Trump's act but denied calling for sanctions. One of the judges, Alex Lee, interrupted Lai and said that whether Lai's draft encouraged sanctions should be a matter for the judges to determine. The defense showed a post forwarded by Lai about Democratic politicians such as Dennis Kwok being disqualified from the Legislative Council election after the national security law took effect. On the post, Lai wrote that then British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab should add officials including then Chief Executive Carrie Lam to the sanction list. Lai said in court that the post was forwarded by Simon Lee. Lai said he was not aware of the post and had no idea who Raab was. The court also reviewed a live show in which Lai said China was not ready for war because its military was not as strong as the U.S. The defense asked if Lai was inciting hatred but bad-mouthing China. Lai said he was simply making analysis. The court adjourned until Monday. Samantha Lee, TVB News.
Today marks the 87th anniversary of the Nanjing Massacre, with memorial events being held by the government. December 13th is designated as the National Memorial Day for the victims of the Nanjing Massacre in 1937. During World War II, Japanese invaders killed about 300,000 Chinese people in the Nanjing Massacre. In a ceremony held at the central government offices, Acting Chief Executive Eric Chan paid tribute to the victims alongside multiple senior government officials. They include former Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying. Also in attendance were senior officials, lawmakers, and members of the Executive Council. China today held the 11th national commemoration for the Nanjing Massacre victims during the Second World War. Around 8,000 mourners stood in silence as sirens blared in the sky of Nanjing, the capital of Jiangsu province in East China. The national flag was flown at half-mast to pay tribute to the 300,000 victims of the mass killing by Japanese invaders 87 years ago. A group of youngsters read out a declaration of peace at the Memorial Hall. After the bell of peace was struck, white doves were released to fly over the square. December 13th was designated as the National Memorial Day for the victims of Japanese atrocities in 2014. Still ahead, Donald Trump is Time's Person of the Year again. South Korea's opposition party submitted new impeachment motion against President Yoon Suk-yeol. And new NATO chief says NATO should prepare it for a wartime mindset against Russia. Welcome back. The Foreign Ministry of Beijing declined to comment on whether President Xi Jinping will accept U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's invitation to attend his inauguration ceremony next month. Danny Zhou has more.
Donald Trump, alongside his family, showed up at the New York Stock Exchange yesterday to ring the opening bell. The American president-elect said he's been thinking about inviting certain people to the inauguration, but did not refer to any specific individuals.
Well, I've invited they've all accepted. Everybody I've invited has accepted.
President Xi as well?
Very good relationship. Thank you.
This after the incoming White House press secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed Trump had invited President Xi Jinping to attend his January 20th inauguration in Washington. She framed it as a gesture to strengthen ties. But experts say Xi is unlikely to accept the invitation. The U.S. State Department records show no foreign heads of state were ever present at the inauguration of U.S. president since 1874. A foreign ministry spokesperson in Beijing declined to comment on whether Xi will attend Trump's inauguration in January. Meanwhile, a White House official said they've worked hard on this important bilateral relationship and that it's up to the discretion of Trump to decide the guests at the inauguration.
We believe that as we get ready to turn over things to the Trump team, that we're turning over a U.S.-China relationship that is in better shape than the one we found it in. That doesn't mean that we don't have disagreements. We do, and we will, and I'm sure they will too. But we're working hard on this relationship, and we'll do that right to the end.
It is reported that Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, Hungarian President Viktor Orban, and a number of other heads of state have also been invited by Trump or his team in a bid to turn Trump's second inauguration into a major global event. Danny Zhou, TVB News.
And U.S. President-elect Donald Trump is Time Magazine's Person of the Year for the second time. The honor recognizes Trump's remarkable comeback from a much criticized former president who refused to accept his election loss 4 years ago to someone who won the White House decisively in November. Trump spoke about the title before ringing the bell at the New York Stock Exchange.
I have to say, Time Magazine getting this honor for the second time. I think I like it better this time, actually. But I do want to thank Time Magazine. I've been on the cover many times. I don't know who has the record, but I can only probably talk well about 25% of the covers. 25% are great. The others I just sort of hide. But it's been an honor, and every time it's an honor.
Thank you.
After ringing the bell at the New York Stock Exchange, Trump walked around the floor area with his entourage, which included his running mate, J.D. Vance. He was also Time's Person of the Year in 2016 when he was first elected president. South Korea's opposition parties have submitted a new impeachment motion against President Yoon Suk-yeol after his short-lived martial law decree last week. The motion will be put to a vote tomorrow afternoon during a plenary session. The December 3rd martial law declaration has triggered political chaos and protests calling for Yoon to step down. Jung Myung-ho, a South Korean National Assembly official, confirmed today the new motion had been submitted. An earlier attempt to impeach Yoon failed, with most lawmakers from Yoon's governing People Power Party boycotting the vote. Russia launched a massive aerial attack on Ukraine involving dozens of cruise missiles and drones. David Garrett reports.
Russia has repeatedly tried to hit energy plants in Ukraine as winter takes an icy grip. The latest barrage of drones and missiles caused more damage to gas supplies, with Russia's military also hitting electrical facilities. Russia says it is in retaliation for Kiev's use of US-supplied ATACMS as the Kremlin aimed for critical fuel and energy infrastructure. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia fired 93 missiles and nearly 200 drones in the early hours. His military shot down 81 missiles, including 11 cruise missiles. Zelensky is just back from the front line, where he praised troops near the Russian-controlled Zaporizhzhia nuclear power station. On the same visit, he went to an underground hospital, which has treated over 1,000 war wounded. Later, Zelensky formally introduced Mikhailo Drapatyi, who is now Ground Forces Commander. Appointed last month, Drapatyi said he would make sure his soldiers would be ready for challenges in the future. Applause too for Mark Rutte as he made a speech warning about the future dangers posed by Russia. The new NATO Secretary-General did not hold back in his concerns over Vladimir Putin, who he says wants to wipe Ukraine off the map.
We must not look the other way. We must face it. What is happening in Ukraine could happen here too. And regardless of the outcome of this war, it is time to shift to a wartime mindset and turbocharge our defense production and defense spending.
Rutte also said Russia is preparing for long-term confrontation with Ukraine and us. Donald Trump, often a skeptic of NATO, was praised by the Kremlin for his stance on Ukraine's use of US missiles on Russian territory. In a Time magazine interview, the US president-elect criticised Ukraine's use of US-supplied missiles. Moscow says that is in line with their own position. David Garrett, TVB News.
And in London, Britain's King Charles mixed the traditional with the trendy technology as he went to a Christmas craft fair and then met Apple CEO Tim Cook. The event happened at the converted and now ultra-modern Battersea Power Station in London, which has been repurposed into a living, recreational and shopping space and looms large over the River Thames. The monarch met with stallholders inside the seasonal market. The king was later introduced to Cook and dozens of Apple workers who work inside the new power station. The staff, unsurprisingly, took photos on their iPhones. That's the news. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.